Hello and welcome to this long awaited edition of the Back Nine Report. And this is because we've been waiting so long for the Masters. I mean, it's been so long. I mean, to me, it's like 2 years already. But anyway, this week, we're going to be talking about the Masters here on the Back Nine Report. Every week, my co host Fred Altvater and I get together and talk about everything: insights, analysis, interviews, recaps, reviews, anything in the world of golf. If it happened in golf, we have it for you. But this week is a massive, long awaited preview of the Masters 2020 in the fall. And as you know, when that happens, there's some major competition. We need major reinforcements, and we're going to bring in the European golf guru, Kieran Clark. Kieran, how are you today?
Hello, Carlos, and thank you as always for having me on the show. It's every year it's a joy to join you both on Masters Week, albeit in very different conditions this time. It's a very different feeling Masters Week, and the Masters likes to call itself a tradition unlike any other. Well, this year will be a Masters unlike any other. Back in the spring, Carlos, the April Masters was one of the first casualties on the sports calendar in the face of the coronavirus pandemic. It really hit off just a few weeks before Augusta earlier in the year, obviously the Players' Championship, and that was the beginning of golf shutting down. And we've come through an awful lot to get to this point in November. So hopefully for everyone worldwide who's obviously went through some difficult times this year, the Masters will be a welcome distraction this week. And I think we can hopefully look ahead to better times to come next spring for the next Masters in April, which should hopefully be a little more like normal. So this will hopefully this week be a once in a lifetime November Masters without fans. But I think in many respects, there's so many unanswered questions. There are differences this week, and it'll be unlike any other Masters. But I think in many respects, it could be highly compelling. And I think it's going to be a captivating week for a lot of reasons. Part of which is because for the first time in a long time, forever really, the Masters this year just feels a little bit different. So we'll see how that plays out, Carlos.
Hopefully, we'll see a lot of that. But hey, let's bring in Fred Alvader. Fred, hi, how are you this week?
Guys, I have to admit, I have not been getting as excited as normal for the Masters. But while preparing for tonight's show and distributing the Ohio Golf Journal yesterday, we went out early because we have a special Masters section in there. So that excitement has kind of been building. And now I'm kind of getting ready for those first tee shots on Thursday morning. The Masters website has a few pictures of the course with fall colors. Looks absolutely amazing, as you knew it would. Twitter is abuzz with posts about everything Masters, and it's difficult not to get caught up in the hype and buildup. So, biggest story of the week, Carlos, there is only one story in golf this week. That is the Masters. It's being held in November, and we have it covered wall to wall. Everything has to take a back seat this week. With that said, we're going to do our best to, in this show, to turn up the anticipation levels even higher with our good friend from Scotland, Kieran Clark, on hand. I can't wait. So let's go. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it. And like you mentioned, all has to be mastered. So we're going to dedicate most of the show. I would say almost all, but anyway, most of the show is going to be masters. You're going to hear every single storyline. We have it for you. But let's do a quick recap about what happened this past weekend on the weekend backspin. And sorry for my voice if it starts to get lost. It's just that I had a big Breeders' Cup weekend and I lost my voice screaming at the horses. I know it's crazy, but anyway, that's what happened. But anyway, on the weekend backspin, there were tournaments this weekend. And Kieran, tell us what happened on the Charles Schwab Cup Championship where Kevin Sutherland had to take down Paul Broadhurst, who didn't want it to go down.
No, it was a marathon in the end, Carlos, and it was a season-ending event for the PGA Tour champions. Obviously, a season unlike any other for them, but they've managed to salvage some kind of schedule in the second half of the year, playing most weeks and having some fantastic winners in that time. Obviously, Phil Mickelson and Jim Furyk and so on. Some great events throughout the latter half of the year. But we came to the finale here at the Charles Schwab Cup Championship. And as you say, Carlos, it was Kevin Sutherland, who won here before. He made a 4-foot birdie putt on the ninth playoff hole to beat former Ryder Cup player Paul Broadhurst on Monday morning. The two players were forced to return to Phoenix Country Club to finish the last event of the year after playing to a stalemate over 6 playoff holes on Sunday night in basically darkness. I mean, how they could see was unbelievable. But they can continue to match each other, obviously on Sunday night, and then again on Monday morning. Some great quality play, some birdies in there, some long putts. But as I say, Sutherland finally got the win at the 9th time of asking on the par 3, hitting his approach to 4 feet to hold that putt. That was his 4th PGA Tour Champions win, and a sore one for Paul Broadhurst. And as I said earlier, Kevin Sutherland, he won here 3 years ago, but this win this time was his only title of this particular season. The season-ending champion won't be crowned until next year due to the pandemic, but more on that quickly. But before we get to that, it was Paul Broadhurst who on Sunday set the place alight by shooting a 63 on Sunday, but he was denied after Sutherland actually hold a 30-footer to tie him in the last hole of regulation play. So a real sore loss for Paul Broadhurst. But elsewhere, Woody Austin, he finished 3 shots back in 3rd place. Wes Short Jr. was in 4th, and this is a story as well. 63-year-old Bernard Langer, his tie for 5th following a 64 was enough to see him end 2020 at the summit of the Charles Schwab standings ahead of Ernie Els by around $26,000. Els, Retief Goosen, Fred Couples, and Glenn Day also finished in that tie for 5th. So, Carlos, it's a victory for Sutherland. It was dramatic. It was a marathon. But one thing you can always rely on, in even these strange times, is Bernard Langer. And there he is, still number 1 on the Champions Tour.
Incredible. I mean, who would have known? 63 years old, young. But anyway, Fred, tell us about Frida Kinhult, the former number 1 in the world amateur golf rankings from Sweden, who earned her LPGA card with a win on the Symetra Tour Championship.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Carlos. The Symetra Tour had their tour championship last week, so it ended their season. Frida Kinhult did win that. It was her first win. But the big story here, Carlos, they are going to award cards to 5 women coming off the Symetra Tour this year for the LPGA Tour next year. And those 5 ladies for the 2021 LPGA Tour cards are Anna Balak, Fatima Fernandez-Cano, Kim Kaufman, Frida Kinhult, and Janie Jackson. So there are going to be some cards issued for 2021 for the LPGA Tour. Season wrapped up, Frida Kinhult gets the win.
All right, now let's talk about the PGA Tour, and I have to talk about this. You knew I was going to take this one because you have to consider 118, a lucky number for Carlos Ortiz, a guy that when he was on the Corn Ferry Tour, but I know it's not the name when he was there. But anyway, he blistered it up. He won 3 times and got the immediate pull up to the PGA Tour. And from there on, we expected him to win, but it didn't come until his 118th start. Right now, he's a veteran. He's from Guadalajara, Mexico, but he needed that many PGA Tour events to finally capture his victory. But let me tell you, it was a very special one, a very emotional one for him. That 65 on Sunday was enough to beat to edge very good players and Dustin Johnson and Hideki Matsuyama to capture the Vivint Houston Open. You know, he had been showing signs that he was ready to break through, making 3 cuts in 5 starts, to start this season. But yet he had not cracked the top 30 in those events. He came into Houston ranked 160 in the official World Golf rankings, but he looked very surprisingly comfortable when he fired that bogey for 65 on Sunday, and it was 3 birdies out of the last 4. So he went for it, and he beat a very, very steady Dustin Johnson, Hideki Matsuyama. It was a very good leaderboard. Very good win for Carlos. Others slipped back on the back 9, but hey, finally he made it. And congratulations for Carlos. Maybe this is the first one and a very built confidence builder for him. We know he's a very good player, so hopefully this is the start of something good for him. So now, Kieran, let's close it up. Tell us, I think I have a hint that you might be a little happy about some guy that just won on the European Tour this weekend. I'm not sure. What would you say about that?
Oh, very much so. Obviously, a long time waiting for Carlos Ortiz on the PGA Tour, but also it's a long time waiting, not quite as long, but still it felt overdue for Robert McIntyre of Scotland to finally secure his first victory on the European Tour. He overcame a rain delay and produced a birdie finish to claim his maiden title on the circuit, thanks to a final round of 64 at the Cyprus Showdown at the truly stunning Aphrodite Hills Resort, an incredible location where the European Tour had been for 2 weeks. And actually, McIntyre had almost won the Cyprus Open at Aphrodite Hills last week, and his good form continued over the same golf course. And the left-hander from Oban in Scotland on the west coast, he was a Rookie of the Year on the European Tour last season, but he struggled a little bit this year. He hasn't quite been able to find the consistency round and round to match the quality of his play that he displayed in his rookie year in 2019. But this week, however, he was wonderfully consistent all week. He was high in the pack as the field was reduced to 32 players and then 19 players after rounds 2 and 3 in this really unique format, with the scores then reset to par for the final 2 days as part of what's an innovative format and something that maybe we might see more of in other events and other tours in the years to come. I think it was a lot of fun and it was actually very successful. But in the end, McIntyre finished 1 stroke ahead of Japan's Masahiro Kawamura. Spaniard Jorge Campillo also finished at 5 under after a birdie eagle finish, and that was a shot ahead of Belgian Thomas Pieters, England's Callum Shinker, who won previous week, and American Johannes Veerman. But McIntyre, he finished 11th on the race to Dubai last year. He had 3 runner-up finishes in 2019 and 4 other top 10s, including a 6th place finish at the Open Championship at Royal Portrush, his major debut that was. So, fantastic player last year, showed so much potential, hadn't quite fulfilled that this year to date, but now he has his first win of 2020, and he can look ahead to a really exciting year to come into 2021 when he hopes to get into the world's top 50 and potentially secure himself an invitation to the April Masters tournament. So McIntyre is the 12th first-time winner on the European Tour this season, Carlos, and he's the second Scottish player to win after Mark Warren's triumph in Austria back in the summer. So it's a little bit overdue for Robert McIntyre, but I think this is pretty much clear going to be the first of many titles for a very, very talented left-handed player.
We have to agree with that. And so there was a lefty winning. It wasn't Phil Mickelson. It was Robert McIntyre. Remember that name. But with that, we wrap up our weekend backspin. Now it is here, what you have been waiting for. And pardon us if we just take 6 hours to finish this preview, but it's just so much that we have to talk to you about because it's been too long. The Masters is finally here. We're excited. I don't care. I mean, I know I had to wait a lot, but when you wait a lot, that's when you want it so much to be here. So that's my case, at least. I don't know how I'm going to feel with a Masters so quick then in April, but hey, at least I don't know. We'll talk about that next year, but it's here. And the first thing that we want to talk about, guys, is the Masters has special meaning for everyone. Fred, I'm going to start with you. What is the meaning of the Masters? Why is it so important? The Masters, to me, is like the golden gem of the majors. What's your take on it?
Yeah, it is my favorite major by far, for sure. Number one, it's played in the same golf course, so we get really familiar with it. But to me, the Masters is about the history and the traditions. And normally it's kind of it's a harbinger for the renewal of spring here in the north. This year, it's a renewal of maybe a little different idea, maybe kind of returning to a more of a normal way of life. The pandemic can throw a bunch of shit at us, but we can still get on and get into the important stuff like a major championship like the Masters. So it's not April, it's November, but we've still got a major and it's still the Masters. I really think the R&A took the easy way out with their insurance payment of $20 million and then canceling. The only major thing that was not rescheduled here in the U.S. was the Players. So we've had a PGA, we've had a U.S. Open, we're going to have a Masters. At least we've had 3 majors this year, and so the Masters, guys, to me, normally it's a renewal. This year, it's a renewal of maybe getting back to our normal way of life.
How about you, Kieran? What does the Masters mean, especially for somebody coming from Europe and in your side, Scotland, which is the home of golf?
Yeah, I think that, for viewers in Great Britain and the UK and probably for Europe, The Masters, obviously for us in April, it's played at night time, so we're spending late nights watching it on TV, and often we're just coming out of a pretty dark winter in the UK. Winters here can be quite long, daylight is short, but obviously we're getting towards the spring typically, and the Masters comes on TV, and obviously it's so green and colourful, and it's so exciting to watch, and it illuminates our living rooms as we're watching it on television. And I think it's long derived a great deal of inspiration to many people. Nick Faldo talks about how he watched Jack Nicklaus win the Masters, I think in 1972, and on TV, and that was his first connection to golf. And then the next day he went downstairs, said to his parents, "I want to go and play golf." And that was the beginning of his journey to obviously a remarkable Hall of Fame career and indeed 3 Masters titles. So it has that connection with viewers all around the world because we're so familiar with it. And I think that's the key thing about the Masters is, it doesn't have the history of the Open Championship or the US Open, and arguably doesn't have the prestige of those events because those events have bigger fields, stronger fields, arguably, and they have obviously the cachet of being national championships. But the Masters has so much iconography. It's iconic. And I think that's the key thing. The golf course obviously is iconic. We all know it so well. We've seen it through the years. We can go back and watch the old tournaments and see how the golf course has evolved. But in essence, we recognize the holes and the shots that the players are going to face. The green jacket obviously is an iconic symbol in golf. Something we've associated players with for generations. So it is iconic. Every year we come back and we see those same images replayed again, but obviously with new protagonists hitting the shots and putting their arms into the jacket. And also the champions here. The champions at Augusta, I think, become iconic themselves just by the fact that they've won at the Masters. They've been winners of other majors, even the Open Championship, who become a little bit probably unfairly forgotten. Whereas at the Masters, they are forever relevant, due to the Champions Dinner. We see them every year, the par 3 contest, obviously they all take part in usually, and indeed the lifetime exemption given to past winners too. So the former winners of the Masters, they're reminded of their success for life, and it's something that remains connected to them. And when you go to the Augusta, it's not really about who has more wins than others. If you're a Masters champion, you're part of that club and you're all on an equal status. So I think, Carlos, the key thing to the Masters every year is the fact that it is so iconic. Fred mentioned it, coming to the same venue every single year. We all have our own memories and thoughts and emotions around that familiarity, that continuing, ongoing story of the Masters and how the event has evolved through the years. We obviously see it change every single year almost. Things are added all the time, indeed this year as well, even in strange times. So, yeah, it's iconic, and I think that is why it stands out in some respects above any other event in the game, because we just know it all so well. And like anything, if you love something and you get the same thing year in year out, you're going to enjoy that. It's like Christmas. Every year it's going to be there, and it's a renewal of obviously those past memories and also making some new ones. So yeah, Carlos, the Masters is iconic.
All right. Now, usually the traditional lead up to this, it's usually the golf's first major of the year, and it's filled with much anticipation. We've talked about this anticipation, what's come, warmer weather mostly for much of the country. Now it's going to be cold weather for most of the country. But Fred, there's a lot of new things. We're previewing a Masters that is going to be empty. Basically, no fans. There's going to be no patrons. There is not going to be any par 3 contest. We're going to have split tees because they're going to be playing. They have to be over early because it's right now. And before the show started, Fred and I were talking about how early it's just getting dark. So they don't have that much time that they would have in the spring. They're going to have also cut to 50 players. So Fred, of all those things, what's your take on it, and what stands out the most to you?
I was on a Zoom call with Scott Van Pelt, Andy North, and Curtis Strange that ESPN did last week, and they kept referring back to the fact there was no patrons. They wouldn't hear the roars, they wouldn't hear the cheers, there wouldn't be the vibe of the crowd. And for me, I think the biggest thing is no patrons. The pictures I've seen so far, looking at the golf course, on Twitter, some of the other social media. I was watching a couple of the media people saying, we just went right down and stood by the 12th tee. We've never, you don't get inside the ropes access as a media person like you do at normal golf tournaments at the Masters. So you're outside the ropes. Matter of fact, a lot of times the media people just stay back in the media room and watch it from there, because you really, with all the people there, you don't have any special privilege. You can't get up close to see the players. They're saying, it's unusual. They were standing right down by the 12th tee and had access. They could see everything that they don't normally get. So, and I know, watching it on TV this week with no patrons there, you're going to see more of the golf course, things that you normally would not see. I think that's the biggest difference for me. The par 3 contrast, that's just a funsy, no big deal there. Split tees, we see that at other tournaments. They can do that off 1 and off 10. They got to do that to save daylight. Cut to 50 players. To me, that's a couple things. Number one, that gets them a little smaller purse. I'm sure that with no patrons there, merchandise sales have to be down from what they normally would be. So it saves money just cutting the purse a little bit. That seems the biggest thing for me about that. That and I don't know, just getting morale a little bit better. And with the prediction for rain this weekend, it may be an issue of getting Thursday and Friday's rounds wrapped up. They may push into Saturday to get things back on track, maybe even into Sunday. So, and they got a kind of a hard window to try and get that thing wrapped up by like 4 o'clock on Sunday, so CBS can get to football. So those things are a little different. Then of course, game day being there on Saturday. I don't know if that was a brilliant move or what that is. We can discuss that later. They're going to be set up on the down by the 9th green on the par 3 there for Saturday morning to preview the football games. So yeah, just a lot of stuff going on, a lot of new stuff. Just not the date. They're doing a lot of different things, guys.
Yeah, the field is set to 93 players, which really could create that challenges, because there's going to be at least like 2.5 hours less of daylight. So sunset scheduled for about 5:30 p.m. this time in Augusta this year. So we'll see the Kieran, the course will play different, but we're going to talk about that, especially with patrons not there. But make no doubt about it, the pressure is going to be the same when they walk down that back 9 on Sunday afternoon. It doesn't matter what it is. This is the Masters. So what strikes you the most about this new things that we're not going to be seeing this year?
Yeah, I think the bottom line is, as Fred touched on, it's having no spectators there. It's a very different landscape for the Masters. No grandstands, no spectator ropes. A very different feel. And as we all hear, the golf course is it's a huge property. It's wide, it's expansive. I think the first time you'll see how big the property really is, even the players, because the fans, when they go there, they naturally frame so many of the holes. Without them being there, suddenly it's undefined. The golf course looks, a huge, expansive park. People can have picnics on it. It's that bigger property. And Fred's been there, and he can speak to this. But without the grandstands, spectators, the ropes, I think it might play a little bit visually different from the tee, even from the fairways. You might see places where you can now miss where you couldn't miss before. And it might give the players different options. Might make it less intimidating, but also it might change their perspective, because players quite like having identifiable markers where they can aim for. If those aren't there, or there's less of them, then that could play into some of the strategy, particularly for the players who know the golf course really well. So players are all having to learn new things this year, whereas typically we associate with players who have been here so many times before, they have an advantage from experience. Clearly that's still the case, but everyone's learning new things this week. It's a Masters that no one has really experienced before. The players who maybe have come here for practice rounds, or come later in the year when there's no fans, it's just a regular with the members, then they have a feeling for what the golf course is like in non-tournament conditions. But obviously the golf course is set up in a particular way, but the surrounds are going to be different. So, and of course you'll miss that atmosphere, that famous Augusta roar, roaring through the pines and all that stuff that makes the event so iconic. And we will miss that. I think I do agree with Fred, what he said at the start, in terms of it's hard to feel the same anticipation, because you're not going to get, it's not going to be quite the same And whoever wins the Masters, obviously there will always be a Masters champion. There'll obviously be a lifetime achievement for them. But in a way, it's almost compromised a little bit by not having the gallery there, because it makes it so. Look at last year when Tiger won. The atmosphere was something unlike we've ever seen before, maybe ever will see again, and it made it. So without that, we've been getting used to obviously having events without fans. The previous two majors of this year, the PGA and the US Open, but I do think it lacks something. I felt that particularly when Bryson was charging to victory at Winged Foot. I almost felt that it was a shame that there wasn't a huge crowd there to kind of welcome him to the finish. And how it affects the pressure, not, we'll have to wait and see. But obviously the Masters is the Masters, but without having all these glaring eyes on you, I don't know, it's a different dynamic. So again, all these unanswered questions that obviously will be played out during the week. But in terms of the other things, the split tees, that's a shame. The Masters and the Open Championship, they're traditionally off the first tee. That's how they play it. Everyone's playing the same golf course in the same order. That's how they've always wanted to do it. But it has happened before. I remember when Jack Nicklaus actually retired from the Masters in 2005. He had weather delays that year, and he had to finish actually on the 9th, finish his Masters career on the 9th. Just obviously a short walk from the 18th green, but still wasn't quite the same. And starting on the 10th, 11th, and 12th, that can be a tough start if you're not sharp in your game. That said, of course, there are birdies and eagles to be made on the back nine, so someone could have a fast start on the back nine. It can work both ways. I'll have to wait and see. And they cut to 50 players, you're taking away the 10-shot rule. I think it makes sense in many ways. I mean, last year, 65 players made the cut, Carlos, out of 87 in the field. So 2/3 of the field made it through to the weekend. So obviously the 10-shot rule comes into play certain years, not others, depending on if somebody runs away with the lead, which can happen after 2 rounds. It can become relevant. But I think in terms of an impact of this, I think it makes it less likely that you'll see the amateurs or one of the older past champions sneaking through to the weekend. I think for those players who maybe go out and shoot maybe 274s, 73, 75, they can occasionally sneak in under the 10-shot rule under certain conditions. But I think without that, we'll see less of that happening. So we'll see less of the older guys making the cut and maybe 1 or 2 less of the amateurs being in the mix for the weekend. So we'll see how it plays out. Obviously, it will be dependent on obviously the event itself. So yeah, things are different this year, Carlos. And I say there's so many unanswered questions. A Masters unlike any other. But seeing how this will play out, I think, is making this Masters maybe not quite as we don't have the same maybe anticipation or the same kind of atmosphere or excitement. But I think there's a degree of this that makes it compelling in that it is that little bit different. An event that in so many ways rests on its tradition, staying the same this year for one time only, we hope. It's a little bit different, and I think that will be quite intriguing.
Yeah, and something new also this week is that, for Team Rutherford, this week's Masters will be like no other because he won't be covering this Revere tournament for the first time since 1983. And his absence really has nothing to do really with the coronavirus pandemic that delayed the Masters to the fall, if it only was that simple. He last month was diagnosed with early onset of Alzheimer's. Uh, he's been having memory problems for 2 years, and he turned 65 on October 25. Fred, it's very, very tough to see that Rosie's not going to be letting us know and talking about the Masters. Last time we saw him was at the On the Classic in February. So, how about this for sad news about Rosie?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Tim Rosefort really is one of the foremost golf journalists in the country. He has been for a long time. He's done a long stint on Golf Channel. He's a golf insider. He hangs out down there in Palm Beach. He knows all the guys at the Bears Club, all the guys that hang out down there in Jupiter. He's very close to a lot of the players. So he gets the inside scoop. He knows what's going on. I had a chance, to talk to him off and on over the years, a little bit here and there. The thing I remember the most about Tim was the year that Phil Mickelson got pulled off of the 18th at Muirfield Village. The FBI grabbed him to interview him. Right after that happened, Tim got up and ran out of the media room because he was doing PR for Phil. How they were going to spin the story and what they were going to do. So He's been at the top of the game, the top of golf for a long, long time, and we wish him all the best. I know this is a tough thing. He's always had such a sharp mind and a great writer and great reporter, and really, really tough deal. And wish him all the best.
Kieran, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I have to echo what Fred said there. Obviously, it's a very difficult situation. Very sad. Tim's one of those people who have made the transition from being, a print journalist to being on television and being, excellent at them both. And as Fred touched on there, he's one of those very few, writers, journalists who had so much access and a relationship with so many players, past and present, so many figures in the game. His cell phone must have been packed with, iconic names. And that's a rare thing, particularly these days when it's so hard now to get access to any player. To have someone like him who had known these guys for years, often decades, that brings with it a certain level of trust, and that brings with it a certain level of access and information. That's a very rare asset to have. I mean, some of the great writers in the past, the likes of Dan Jenkins and so on, they were basically in with the guys. They went out and played golf with them, they ate with them, they drank with them, and that's now a thing of the past. And the journalists of today, which unfortunately is a dying industry, certainly when it comes to golf, there's fewer guys out on tour now covering the circuit on a regular basis. So you don't have that same relationship. Whereas Tim obviously had a fantastic relationship with so many players, and that allowed him to be able to tell so many behind the scenes stories and bringing the viewers and the fans closer to the tour. So it's a real shame, because obviously it's a terrible illness, a degenerative illness. And for someone who is still young and still so sharp, and he's a very fit guy. I mean, he goes to the gym every single day, he eats well, he's like an athlete. But unfortunately, these things are never fair. So obviously, we wish him many years ahead, where he can have many good years ahead. We hope, and we'll obviously be watching this Masters from afar. So we wish him well. But obviously, very sad news for someone who's been involved in the golf industry for 40 years, best part of. So yeah, it was a real shame, and I think you can see with the reaction of the players and some of his colleagues, just how highly thought of he was and remains as not just a person, but as a professional, as a journalist, and one of the very best and one of the most iconic and best known, certainly in the US.
Definitely, and that hits close to home because my mother-in-law is suffering from that. So I can't imagine seeing him going through what my mother-in-law is going. So it's very, very difficult. But anyway, we wish him the best, and we'll miss you, Rosie, not seeing you this week. Another thing that has affected this year is COVID-19. So that's part of the reason. That's the reason basically why the Masters is being played in the fall. Now I'm gonna go to you, Fred. Sergio Garcia and Joaquin Niemann are the two that have withdrawn from the Masters because they tested positive. So unfortunately for Sergio, he won't have a chance to try to add a second jacket to his collection. And for Joaquin, well, he was looking forward to finally playing here and try to see what he could do. Also, something else from the COVID-19 is that the hotels, because you have no patrons, that have been hit hard during Augusta. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, one of the hotels, the kind of a high-end thing, the Partridge Inn has been there forever. They're a couple months behind on their mortgage. They're just, there's no travel. So the golf industry as a whole has been booming, as we know. We've been reporting on it, equipment sales, green fees, everything has been good, except golf travel. The resorts still, I was down to French Lick a couple of weeks ago. They're mandated, they can not have more than 50% of their rooms occupied. You go in a restaurant, they've got the tables all spread out and all this kind of thing. So they're limited how many people they can have it, and they're not even getting that many people in there. They're only running at about 30% capacity. So that part of the industry has been hit hard. And so no patrons means no restaurant business, no bar business, no motel and hotel business. People rent out their houses and pay their mortgage payment, by renting their house out for the week, and they leave town. None of that is going on this week in Augusta, and it's a tremendous hit to the economy down there. So I don't know, the Masters, the Augusta National people seem to be buying up all the real estate they can buy down there. Maybe they've got deep enough pockets. They can help pay some of these mortgages. They can maybe buy some of these properties. I don't know. But it's just a sign of the times, guys, that the hotels are being hit because there's no patrons going to the Masters this year.
Kieran, how about that? I mean, Sergio and Joaquin Neiman out in the hotels there. Just like Fred said, sign of the times, being hit hard. No patrons this year.
Yeah, very much so. And you obviously given the Augusta economy knows every year the Masters is coming round and that huge international beacon, people traveling from all over the world to come here. Media, players, everybody, so many fans, tens of thousands of people descending upon the local area and obviously enhancing the economy. It's a bonanza every year, and it's what they budget for, it's what they look out for, and it makes their year. And obviously to have that taken away from them is devastating. And I think it's, as you say, it's a sign of the times, and it's a reflection of how this Masters just has a very much a different feel to it. And some of the players have spoken about this week so far is they've come on the property and they're excited to be here and it's great and it's wonderful and they're looking forward to it. But there just isn't that same buzz. There isn't that sense of all those people waiting at the gate, waiting to come in with their chairs and running around, power walking to the spot they want to get to.
No running. There's no running.
Yeah, no running. Yeah,
I
must say, this is a humorous note. That is one of the funniest things every year, is watching all the people try and walk as fast as they can without running, carrying those chairs. You just watch them so nervously, trying to scuffling along. Makes me laugh every year. But anyway, it's unfortunately not this year. But yeah, it's very different. And it's an eerie atmosphere, I would think, at Augusta this year, where obviously it's silent on the golf course, but it's silent in the area, in the town. There's no traffic, isn't the same. There isn't people going to restaurants and bars. John Daly isn't selling his merchandise down the road at the Hooters. So it's all very different this year. I say, hopefully, come April time, all going well, we can have something a little more like normal. And that's what we can all hope for. So, yeah, it's a real shame for the economy. And it's interesting what Fred mentioned earlier in terms of the Open Championship obviously being the one men's major not to go ahead this year. I think certainly for the local economies in Sandwich, where all St George's is, I think they would be delighted that the event was postponed until next year, and hope they could actually get some fans and get those reservations and get those bookings in restaurants and bars and so on, actually get that local economy boost. And certainly here in St Andrews, which was originally supposed to be hosting the Open next year, obviously now it's deferred by another year. That event could bring in multiple millions of pounds to the local economy, given how big that event will be, the 150th Open in 2022. So I think they were quite relieved that those events were pushed back a year to try and get that financial boost in next year. But obviously, it's trying to get to that, and that's going to be a challenge for all businesses all over the world. But yeah, for the Augusta businesses, the Masters is there at Augusta National. The Masters isn't at Augusta, the town, the city this year. And I think they will certainly feel the pain of that. And hopefully they can all make it through to April, and where, as I say, hopefully we'll see a more normal Masters tournament.
You're on mute, Carlos.
How did that happen?
You're supposed to mute Kieran, not yourself.
I think that's what happened. I was trying to mute him, and I muted typical thing. I'm sorry about that, but anyway, let's start to get into the nitty gritty of the of the preview now of the tournament, and let's start because since this post pandemic restart, really the golf story of 2020 have been Bryson DeChambeau and his added weight, muscle, and distance off the tee. His newfound length, as you all know, shredded Winged Foot at the U.S. Open, leading to that 6-stroke victory and the first major title in his career. Now he's heading to Augusta, of course, the National Golf Club, which, like Winged Foot, is nearly 100 years old, steep in history, and one that DeChambeau plans to trying to gut. And he's been upfront about it, about his Masters preparation, saying that it would involve hitting a driver after driver as far as humanly possible. Fred, can Augusta stand up to Bryson DeChambeau?
Well, if the weather holds up to what it looks like, it's going to be very wet. So the golf course is going to be playing very long. So at a distance is going to be an advantage. So Sandy Lyle played, you're familiar with him, I believe, Kieran,
Oh
Sandy Lyle.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
he played a practice round with Bryson yesterday, I believe, or Sunday maybe. And Sandy posted a little Twitter thing here. He says, Bryson had some eye-popping club selections into holes, including number one, he hit a sand wedge. Number two, he hit an 8-iron. Okay, that's a par five, guys. Number three, he hit 3-wood over the green. That's a par four. That's almost impossible to hit, but he went for it with a 3-wood. Most guys come up a little bit short with their driver. It's 335 uphill, so that's a pretty big blast with a 3-wood. Number 8, which again is a par five, hits 7-iron into that green, and most of the time, even Tiger is hitting 5-wood. Rory's hitting 5-wood into that green normally because it's uphill and it's a little dog leg par five. Number 10, which goes way downhill, but then it comes back up to the green. He hit pitching wedge. Most guys are hitting 7-irons or 8-irons into there. Number 11, which is down the hill again, 9-iron. 13, a par five, 7-iron. Yeah, it continues. 3-wood off the tee at 9. I'm sorry, 3-wood off the tee and 9-iron to the green at 15. 15 into hit driver. It's par five. It's 3-wood and then 9-iron. It's a sand wedge on 17 for the second. So if this advantage that he has, if he keeps it in the grass, hitting these short irons, if the greens are soft, he could be sticking them in there and very makeable putts, guys. I think it's a tremendous advantage. He's so much longer than everybody else right now. Matthew Wolff maybe the same thing because we know Matthews is longer than DeChambeau. He's just not getting all the press that Bryson's getting. And there's a couple other guys. Rory's still pretty long. So length could very well be a big issue this weekend, guys.
Well, he claims that he can hit his new 48-inch driver more than 400 yards in the air, which leads some to worry that Bryson could overpower Augusta National. But Kieran, how about that 350-yard third hole? He can just drive the green, right? That iconic 510-yard par 5 13 hole. I just bombered over the threes into the 14th fairway for an easy approach into the green. Uh, traditionalists have expressed concern. Though some think Augusta will hold its own. What you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is more to Augusta than just bombing it as far as you can. I think there are some other intricacies about the golf course that DeChambeau in the past has found himself tripped up by. He has not putted well in his appearances at Augusta in the past, and obviously, as we know, Augusta doesn't permit the greens books he uses so diligently. At the U.S. Open, he was analysing that book to no end, on every single green. You won't have that opportunity this week at Augusta. So there are other subtleties to the golf course that could pick not just him, but any of the big hitters out. Obviously, distance is always an advantage. The more you have, the better. And particularly, as Fred said, when the golf course will almost certainly be playing very long in terms of how sodden the fairways will be. But that said, you still have to hit it in the right areas. This golf course has so often been a second shot golf course. Iron play unlocks these, very tight pins, and the great iron players have always done well at the Masters. So it's one of those things where obviously if he is carrying the ball that far and he's hitting it straight and accurate, then of course he has a big advantage. But that's still a big if. You still have to do that. And obviously the trees at the Masters are very, very tall. So you have to hit the perfect shot to carry that far sometimes. And maybe you're more willing and more able to do that when you're playing a practice round rather than playing on Sunday in the Masters. But that said, of course, at Winged Foot, he showed he could handle all that pressure and all aspects of his game. That's kind of the thing people forget about. We're so preoccupied on how far he hits the ball, we forget he actually hits it really straight. And also, His short game is getting better. The iron play is getting better, and his putting at wing foot was magnificent. So that combination, if he can get the putting and the long driving, he's going to make a lot of birdies. He's going to make a lot of good scores. Now the question is, will some of the trickier holes catch him out where he can't have a driver in hand, like holes at number 12? Could that catch him out, as it did to so many guys last year? I mean, he's not going to hit driver there, obviously. So there are holes that can catch him out. And if he is wayward off the tee, and this golf course, can bite you. But of course, it gives him a massive opportunity, a massive platform to play really well and score really well here. People are kind of harkening back to what Tiger did in '97 when he seemed to play a different game for everybody else and was driving wedge, driving 8-iron to basically all the holes. And of course, he won the Masters that year by a mile and seemed to change the nature of the golf course. They tried to Tiger-proof it after that and made it much longer, and that was seen as a game-changing moment. I don't think we're quite there, because I do think, as much as DeChambeau hits the ball so far, there's a second category of long hitters, and Fred touched on them there, Rory, Matt Wolff, Dustin Johnson, Tony Finau, guys who can just about get it as far as Bryson does, if not the same. Maybe not. I think it's more about the approach rather than the technique. So, Bryson obviously hits the ball very far because of his physique and the way he swings it, but it's more about how he approaches it. He believes that aggressive play is the way to do it. And he was validated in that perspective at wing foot. A lot of the other guys, they can hit the ball far. They just choose not to. But Bryson might be opening up the window. It's like Pandora's box here, opening up the things, showing the guys a way. Well, you know what? If he can do it, why can't I? And that's the fear from, as you say, Carlos, the traditionalists, in that it's not going to be just Bryson next year or in 5 years' time. It's going to be 10, 20, 30, 50 guys who are all going to be taking this approach. And suddenly these golf courses, even the ones at Augusta National, suddenly no longer have the same teeth that they once did. So it's an intriguing question. It's probably the biggest question coming into this week in terms of the storylines, because everyone's talking about Bryson. He's box office, he's popcorn inducing. You love him, you love or hate him. He divides opinion with no one else, but he's interesting. And I can't wait to see what he does this week, good or bad. I'm not wholly convinced he's actually going to play that well here this week. I'm not. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. But yeah, either way, it's going to be fascinating. On Thursday, usually it's going to be people in the past who say, yeah, we're going to watch Tiger and watch Phil. What are they going to do? Even Rory, what's Rory going to do? This year, on Thursday morning, it's all about Bryson. What is Bryson going to do? And how is Augusta National going to stand up to that? I'll have to wait and see.
Definitely. And now let's start talking about the players that are going to be playing here. We're going to do a quick rundown of many players and what we think are their chances to win this year. And we got to start with the defending champion, because Tiger Woods, the last time we saw him was, those two fists in triumph in the air, clinching them and all that. Oh, wow. I mean, his Masters victory was unthinkable after what he had been through, but many that had seen his ball striking during that lead up knew that he had a chance. Fast forward now 19 months, and frankly, not much is expected from him. Yeah, I know he can still maneuver his way around Augusta National with a blindfold, and still he should under par. But would that be enough to contend this week against thoroughbreds? That's highly doubtful. Fred, what's your take on Tiger Woods?
Just not playing enough. What we've seen of him lately, just not tournament ready, not golf course ready. You can hit a lot of balls and you can chip on the putting green and all that kind of thing, but when you get out in competition, it's a whole different ball game. We all know that. Anybody who plays golf knows that. The longest walk in golf is from the driving range to the first tee. So, and Tiger's just not ready to play tournament golf. I just don't expect. I don't think he'll make the cut, to be quite honest with you. He could. Nothing surprises me with Tiger, but I just don't see him contending this week or really being in the mix. I just don't think he's playing enough, guys.
Kieran, he's just played 6 events, and the results haven't been pretty. T37 at the BBA Championship in August was the best of the bunch. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the key thing is he hasn't played much, but he hasn't played well when he has. And there's nothing in his game, stat-wise, form-wise, to suggest that he's going to come here and contend. Of course, the intangible is that he's Tiger Woods. This is Augusta National. He can do anything. He's shown that before. and this is a venue where he tends to do the unthinkable. But logically, you cannot see him contending. As much as you know, the experience he has here, form that he has, the memories here, the knowledge of the golf course, it's just it's to me it's just too much of a gap to bridge. Even with all those attributes, it's hard to see him contending with the likes of DeChambeau or Justin Thomas over 4 rounds, or Dustin Johnson, because they have just so the tools they have he doesn't have right now. And I said at the time, I mean, Tiger can do anything, but I felt last year, you know, whatever happened after that point, he had the final chapter his career deserved. And there could be a epilogue to that. There could be an extra bit and some more triumphs in the future, but it could have been it. That could have been the one. And if it is, we're very lucky to have seen it, and I'm glad that we did. But this week, I can't see him contending. However, I do think he has enough about him, enough grind, enough determination, enough experience around here to make the weekend. And he might get better as it goes along. He might, you know, maybe finish in the top 25 maybe, but I just don't really see him being there in contention whatsoever at the weekend. But as Fred mentioned there, nothing shocks us with Tiger Woods. So if he goes out on Thursday and shoots 69, 68, then you never know. But it's just hard to see. So I think this year we'll be thinking more about last year's Masters for Tiger than this year's one. I think he will be adorning the jacket on somebody else come Sunday.
All right, and
I think you
definitely.
make a really good point there, Kieran. If I could just a second, I think coming out of Friday, I think he's got to be looking at 3 under. He's got to be looking at 6 under coming to after Friday night. I think that would put him in the mix, and that's a pair of 69s. And normally for Tiger, 68, 69 around Augusta National, that's very doable. But as you said, we saw the buildup. He was getting better. We could see the progression building into the Masters in 2019 through the fall of 2018 and into 2019. This year, it's when he's played, and he's not played very much. He has not played very well either. And even his iron play, which is normally so strong, has not been spot on either. So actually his best thing was driving over these tournaments he's played. He's struck the ball with the driver very nicely, but the rest of his game has not been good. And that's just shows that he doesn't have enough reps in tournament action.
Take it for what it's worth. When he was talking about a recollection about his last year's championship today, he got a little emotional. So that could be the reason why he even thinks maybe, hey, I know I don't have that good of a chance this time. I'm looking maybe at that might have been my last one, but we'll see what it happens. Like you guys mentioned, nothing would surprise us, even if he goes out and win. Now let's talk about another legend of this time. That's Phil Mickelson, another Masters winner. Fred, what do you think about Phil's chances?
Yeah, Phil's got the 2 wins on the Champions Tour, but on the regular tour, he's not been doing that much. So he talks about hitting bombs, and he's talked about hitting a longer driver. He tried a different driver at Houston. That didn't work. He went back to the 2-wood. And he still hits it plenty far enough, and he can hit it in the fairway. With a longer driver, he can't control it. With a longer driver, I don't know if you guys have ever tried them or not. I tried it years ago. I tried to hit a longer driver, and you really have to time it. The timing is so much different. You have to just wait and wait and wait. It's amazing how much longer it takes for that longer driver, for the head to get around there with that longer arc. And so, Phil has taken how many thousands of shots over his lifetime, and to change that little bit with just add a couple inches onto a driver, that's a major change. So I just don't see that working that well for him. Phil is unbelievably fit. I was amazed watching him at Houston. He is in tremendous shape for a 45-year-old guy or a 50-year-old guy. He's in amazing shape, no question about it. But when you're 50, that's not 25. I'm sorry, the body just is not as strong, as flexible, and you cannot do the things at 50 that you could do when you're 25 or even 30. So to compete with these young guys, I just don't see it, Phil. I know you're great, and I know your short game's wonderful, and I know you like to show off, but I just don't see it happening for him this week, guys.
What do you think, Kieran?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think Fred touches on a really important point in there. Is that Phil is a guy who loves to experiment. He loves to try new things. He gets inspired by that. In many ways, he's a little bit like DeChambeau. He loves trying stuff and trying to push boundaries. He always has done. He thrives in that. Phil's someone who I think he loves golf. He loves playing golf. He loves the challenge of it and trying to be as good as he can be at whatever stage of his career he can be. But the interesting thing is, Phil is unbelievably fit now. He's very healthy. He's probably in the best physical shape he's ever been in. But as Fred touched on, he's 50. And I think Phil is looking at Bryson DeChambeau and all the young guys now, Dustin Johnson, how fit all these guys are. And he's thinking the way for him to remain competitive with them, even at Augusta, is to try and become like them, to hit the ball as far as they do. And it just doesn't work that way. I think for Phil's going in the wrong direction. For Phil to remain competitive at this golf course and round here, he should be looking at how has Bernard Langer remain competitive around here? What does he do? He keeps the ball in play. He's precise. He's just accurate. Fred Couples plays well here. He hits the ball a long way, but not anywhere near like these guys do. He still plays well here because he just knows his way around. He navigates his way around. He knows the golf course so well. He hits the ball so consistently still. And Phil's trying to play this golf course like a 25-year-old is, as Fred touched on. I just don't think that works. I think you have to change your approach. Even if physically you're in the best shape, I think your strategy has to change. And Phil hasn't quite caught on to that fact yet. Phil still thinks he can play like these guys can. And that might work on the senior tour where the golf courses are less penal. I don't think it works on the PGA Tour as the results have shown. Even here, as much as he has a great record here, in recent years he hasn't done quite as well. And I think there's a reason for that. In his driver, he's so inaccurate now. And this golf course has gotten tighter over the years. The trees are getting thicker and getting taller. And the second cut is getting longer. And one report from the golf course this week has been that the second cut is longer this year than it has been in the past. It's not knee deep by any means, but it's just enough to make those approaches and those short game shots a little bit more difficult. Take the spin off the ball, make it even harder to get the ball close to the hole. So Phil has all the experience, amazing tools around the greens, and that can go a long way here. But I just think you have to get the ball in play. If you don't do that, it doesn't really matter what you do around the greens, because over 4 rounds, these other guys will just wear you down. You might have 1 or 2 good rounds in there, but you're going to throw in a 75, 76. And if you do that, you're not going to win. And Phil Mickelson, I'm afraid, he will not go back the years this week.
All right, guys, now let's go to more players. And now let's do a quick rundown, just a quick comment on what you think about these players that we're going to be mentioning. We're going to start with players outside the top 10, and we're going to start with a big one outside the top 10, and that's Brooks Koepka. What are his chances, Fred?
You know what? He had a really good weekend at Houston, 65-65 on the weekend. Was watching Golf Central, just a Golf Live from the Masters, just a few minutes before I came up to do the show. Brandel Chambly or Justin Leonard made a really good point. He says, I watched him at Houston, and Houston is flat. The greens are all raised. He had to walk up a little 3 or 4 foot, slope up to the greens, but the rest of the golf course was flat. Augusta National is very, very hilly, very, very, very hilly. There are no level lies. You're walking uphill, downhill, side hill lies, all kinds of different shots. You're putting a lot of stress on a hip and on knee, all that kind of stuff. So if he's got any issues with his legs or knees or whatever, they will come out this weekend. Brooks Koepka, love him to death. I don't think this is probably a good week for him. This close to coming off injury.
Kieran.
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit too soon for Brooks. If we're talking maybe in April and he's fit through to April and playing well, then I think he'll be among the main favourites. This week, he's always capable. He's got such a great attitude in these big events. He brings out his best for the big stages, and obviously he's played really well here in the past couple of years. So you never know; it's always possible. But I would put Brooks in that second tier of players who I don't expect him to contend and win, but if he was there, I would not be surprised, because he has that that intangible ability to bring out his best at the most important times. Those 4 majors every year, he brings it out, and it's a very rare talent to have. And those players are very rare and very special, and that's why you can't entirely discount them at any major, even this one.
Kieran, Brooks, Brandon Champley, Justin Leonard, Fred Altvater, and Kieran Clark are providing you with the ammunition to go out there and win. We'll talk about that pretty soon. Patrick Reed, Fred, how about that?
Well, I believe Patrick has won here in the past. He was such a popular winner. But that being said, if the golf course is going to be very wet and very soft, Patrick is not short by any means, but he's not as long as Bryson or Tony Finau or Matt Wolf. I think it'll be a little bit more difficult for him this time around. And to echo a point that Kieran made, I went through the field, all 93 players, and discounting the amateurs and discounting the senior players, there's about 50 guys that could win this thing. And I'm not saying that Patrick Reed could not win it. If he has a really good week, he has to have a really good week putting, a spectacular week putting for him to win. And that could happen, okay? But the odds are that he will not win this week just because the golf course is probably going to be playing too long for him.
All right. What you think, Kieran? About the popular previous winner of this tournament, Patrick Reed.
Well, I think if you had a poll online and you asked people, who do you not want to see the Masters again? Rightly or wrongly, I'm afraid that Patrick would probably be top of that list. However, as Fred touched on, when he won here 2 years ago, he had an amazing week on and around the greens. It was one of the best I've ever seen. He just holed out so well, up and down so many times. He did ground out the field, the quality of his game around the greens. But he was also very good with his irons as well. So Patrick Reed, obviously he revels in the fact that no one likes him. He enjoys being kind of the villain, the antagonist. But I think as Fred touched on there, over the 4 days, particularly if the golf course is playing long, can you see him over 4 rounds being able to best some of the big hitters? I don't. I think a top 10, quite probably, quite possibly, but I just don't see him being in there right at the mix late on Sunday.
Patrick is trending. He's one of the game's favorite villains, that player so many fans love to hate. But he's steadily getting his game to peak at the right time. 4 consecutive results of 14th or better coming to this week and rounding out there around, hovering around the top 10 in the world. So we'll see what happens. Next player up, I'm going to give you this one first, Kieran. Tommy Fleetwood. What do you think about him?
Again, we talk about great ball strikers doing well at Augusta. Tommy's one of the best, but he hasn't quite been as sharp this year, particularly post-lockdown, hasn't quite shown his quality consistently. So it would be a bit of a surprise if he was to come here and play well. His record so far at the Masters has been relatively uninspiring, hasn't done too much, but that doesn't necessarily count for too much overall. I think he has a wonderful game, a wonderful temperament. I think he could certainly play well here. But I just don't think he's in the state right now, form-wise, to realistically win. But a top 20, I think, is more achievable. And I think Tommy is someone who could very well win the Masters in future years, but I just don't think it will be this week.
What do you think, Fred?
I have to just echo that 100%, Kieran. Tommy just has not been playing that well since they came back from the layoff, and really good player. And again, I think if the ground was firm and fast, if the course was firm and fast, I think Tommy, if he's on his game, he could be a factor, but probably not this week.
Okay, here comes another former winner of this tournament, and that is Bubba Watson. Nobody has more imagination creating shots than Bubba Watson, and he's trending. He's playing pretty good. What do you think, Fred?
Bubba could be a favorite this week. I would be wary of Bubba. We've documented he had some. He's been dealing with some mental issues, some anxiety issues. Seems to have maybe kind of put those behind him, or at least is in a place where he can handle them. Just signed a nice new contract with Ping, so his future is pretty secure, which it was anyhow. But and he likes this place. I believe he's won here a couple times, so he's long enough. He can work the ball. This might be something that really appeals to him and gets him fired up a little bit. I wouldn't count Bubba out this week.
What do you think, Kieran?
Yeah, I think Bubba could have a very good week this week. I think, as Fred touched on there, he has had the mental health problems that he's been very candid about, seems to have gotten on top of those. And as you said there, Carlos, he's been playing very well recently. Some couple of great results at the CG Cup and the Zozo Championship. So he's playing well. And here at Augusta, two-time winner, has finished strongly the last 2 years as well. So he's still playing well at his golf course, hits the ball a long, long way, as we know, and can do absolutely anything with a golf ball. He's one of the most purely talented players we have in the game. And as a two-time Masters champion, he's been there, he's done it, and he has nothing to lose. So I think if Bubba gets off to a good start, he could be one of those danger men this week. I think he's one of those guys, if you see him on the leaderboard going into Sunday, he's not someone to discount because he's done it before. He could certainly do it again. This place loves repeat champions. He's done it before. Can he be a three-time champion? It's a very elite club. But yeah, he's a wonderful player to watch. And he brings the power and the artistry. He combines the two. And I think Augusta National as a layout, that's the kind of player that this golf course loves. And certainly with Bubba and Augusta, that love is reciprocal. It goes both ways. I think he'll play well this week.
Kieran, what do you think?
Carlos, just to make one more point there, Kieran referred to Bubba as an artist. And, what better canvas than Augusta National? So here you have this beautiful setting, this beautiful piece of art, or whatever you want to call it, which is Augusta National. And you have a guy like Bubba, who is kind of an artist with a golf club, moving a golf ball around. It might be a perfect fit for him, guys. It just kind of might mentally all mesh together.
There's this times that I know you both have shots in your mind that you never forget. One of them that I will never forget was when he won the Masters. He was on the trees. How was he was in that playoff with Louis Heisen. How was he gonna get out? And he does this hook over the trees and gets it right into the green. I would never forget it. That was the setup for him to win that day. And definitely he can imagine shots that nobody else can. And not only he can imagine them, he can make them true. Kieran, how about Adam Scott?
Again, a former champion, that brings with it a lot of cachet here, but I don't think he's played enough this season, and I don't think he's done enough in the events that he has played. So for him to win here, I think it would be a surprise. Obviously, he's got great experience here. He's such a good player. He's always good in these big events, always brings his game in the majors, but I just don't think he has that extra gear to win anymore, at least not this week. I think he's someone who'll probably finish in the top 20, top 25, might do slightly better than that, but I don't expect to see him on the back nine in contention.
What do you think, Fred?
Yeah, I don't see Adam winning at all. Just not playing that much and not playing that well when he has. But he's had little flashes here and there, and he very could well be in contention heading to the back nine on Sunday. But I don't know this game will hold up under a lot of pressure.
How about one of my big guys, Hideki Matsuyama? He's done pretty well here, Fred. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually have him as one of my picks later in the show. So I believe it or not, Hideki has been trending. He's been playing pretty decent of late. He struggled for about a year and a half. Some personal issues, I think, kind of threw him back, but he's been playing much better lately, and he's been trending coming into Augusta. He's won at Muirfield Village. He's won at Firestone. If he's won at those two places, he can win at Augusta National, and he's got the game to do it.
All right. Now, what do you think, Kieran, about Hideki?
Fantastic player and showing the signs of his best. Obviously, he was right there at the US Open before falling away on the last day a little bit. But a wonderful ball striker, terrific iron player, and that's always so key at Augusta. My one caveat with Hideki is always on the greens, particularly under pressure. He misses too many, and on those fine margins on a Sunday in a major, he seems to fall on the wrong side of those too often. So I don't think he's going to win. It'd be obviously stratospheric if a Japanese player could win the Masters. It'd be huge and it'd be a great story. So a terrific player, could finish in the top 10. But again, I just don't think he quite has that little bit of an edge to get the jacket. But I'd be happy if it did happen. I think he's a fantastic player. I think it'd be a great story, but I just don't quite see it happening this week.
I would be extremely happy if he wins. Fred, how about Tony Finau?
This could be the perfect time for Tony Finau. We've seen him, he's a long hitter. And the theme that I keep going out all night is that long hitters could very well be the deciding factor this week. I don't know if, like Kieran, I'm not sure if he is quite a good enough putter yet and quite a good enough chipper. But he's a very good player. And if he's hitting out there and just hitting short irons into the greens, the chipping becomes a non-issue, and the putting, if he can just keep it around the hole a little bit, he'll be okay. So I think Tony is at about the right place in his career to win a major, and he's got the right kind of game for Augusta National. This could be a good week for him.
All right, Kieran, how about Tony Finau?
I find myself agreeing with Fred again, shockingly, despairingly, depressingly. I think Tony Finau has a great chance this
is not the show I was waiting for.
I know. Well, let's try and get to the favourites then. We'll have some more disagreements there, I'm sure. But on these guys, I agree. I think Tony Finau has a fantastic game. He's a perennial major contender. Of course, he was right there last year with Tiger and Francesco Molinari, kind of the forgotten man in that final pairing, that final group, but he was right there. Always plays well, has all the tools to play well in these golf courses. But again, the question mark is he hasn't crossed the line enough. He's only one win to his name on the PGA Tour is astonishing given his ability. He should be a multiple winner. He will be surely at some point. But I almost think that Tony is just as likely to win here as he is the Phoenix Open. I think his next win could actually be a major, and it wouldn't surprise me. I think he has a lot going for him, and who knows? Maybe this unique atmosphere without the fans, without that kind of that cauldron around Amen Corner, it's not going to be quite the same this year. It might benefit him. So I think Tony will be there or thereabouts on Sunday.
All right, now let's start to pick it up a little bit, and let's go 2 by 2 now. How about Kieran, Justin Rose, and Paul Casey?
Well, two Englishmen, both have excellent records at Augusta, particularly Justin Rose, 2 runner-up finishes there, and he has a great scoring record here. But he hasn't done enough on the golf course this year. His game is not in great shape. I just don't see him replicating his past results at Augusta. Paul Casey, on the other hand, played so well at the PGA Championship. He was so unlucky not to win there at Harding Park. It was only the brilliance of Morikawa that denied him. And Casey has, as a long hitter, good all-round player, has a really good relaxed attitude as well these days. I think he'll play well this week. I'm not sure either of them will win, or certainly don't Justin Rose will win, but I think Paul Casey could certainly be a top 10 player this week. Whether he has that edge to win, I'm not sure, but I think he'll do well.
Fred, how about Justin Rose and Paul Casey?
Both of these guys are second shot players, very, very, some of the best in the world for sure. Top 5, Justin Rose and Paul Casey in shots into the green. The problem is they're going to be hitting too long of clubs into the greens. When the other guys are hitting wedges and 8 irons, they're going to be hitting 7s and 6s, and that does not relate well. The only thing is the greens may be a little softer, so those longer irons may bite up for them a little bit better if they can hit the right spot. But I just don't see it happening for either one of those guys this week.
Fred, 2 Matthews, Fitzpatrick, and Wolf. What's your take on them?
Boy, that's kind of the yin and the yang right there, isn't it? Again, Fitzpatrick, a great ball striker as well, but just not that long. Matt Wolf, I think he's got to be one of the favorites this week, to be quite honest with you. Even though he's a young guy, it's his first time here. I like Matt Wolf this week a lot.
All right. What you think, Kieran?
I think so. I agree with Fred. I think Matt Wolf, and indeed we'll talk about him later, but I think also Morikawa, these guys are Masters rookies, and we've obviously there's that taboo, that sign over the players that the rookie can't win at Augusta. We're going back to Fuzzy Zeller back in '79. That's the only one since, indeed, the second Masters in 1935. So the rookies don't tend to win here. But I think this week, given the tools that these guys have and Matt Wolf has with his distance and his ball striking, if he's on, he can play well around here. He'll make a lot of birdies around here. The question is, does he have these? Can he learn the golf course quick enough to not make those costly mistakes? But he has all the ingredients to play well here. And if we're going to see a rookie win at Augusta, this might very well be the year.
All right, I'll keep my comments on that for later. But anyway, Fred, 2 players, Louis Oosthuizen and Jordan Spieth.
Well, there's a lot of difference too. Louis Oosthuizen, tremendous ball striker without question. And he's long, but I don't think he's long enough for this week. And he's played okay this year, but nothing fantastic. So I don't think this is going to be a good week for Louis. And then Jordan, that's, boy, I tell you, I wish I could tell you, just every week he has one bad round. He'll have two bad holes, just mess up his whole week. It's just, he'll be able to get away with the driving maybe a little bit this week because it's a wider golf course. Maybe he won't put as much pressure on his driving, and he'll let things free up and be better around the greens. So Jordan Spieth knows how to play this golf course. He's won here, so it could happen. I don't think he's quite long enough for this week if the golf course is going to be real soft, but he's a hell of a player, and he's due to break out of this mental slump or whatever the hell he's in one of these days, and this could be a good place to do it.
What do you think, Kieran, about Louis and Jordan?
I think Louis is one of those guys that you can never rule out in a major. His record in majors is fantastic. Obviously, he was right there at the US Open as well. He's just such a good all-round player. I mean, his career will go down as one of those careers where you wonder how he only has one major. He's come so close to winning more often, and I'll mention something about that later on. But on Jordan Spieth, I mean, I think for all of us as golf fans, we want to come out of this week with optimism for Jordan Spieth that he's going in the right direction again. He's taking a lot of knocks this year. As Fred mentioned, he's had some good rounds, some really good stretches and rounds, but he just hits some unbelievably bad shots at costly times and will rack up a triple bogey out of nowhere and then go and birdie 3 holes in a row to make up for it. So you can't get away with that on the PGA Tour. The standard is too high. Jordan obviously has great memories here, great record here. If there's one golf course he could come to life on, it would probably be this one. But I just don't think his game is quite there. But I do hope he comes out of this week. If he can finish, can play all 4 rounds, can play well, can maybe get better day on each day, can maybe finish top 20, top 10 at a push. If he can do that and try and end his year on a high and then look to better times to come in 21, because I feel that the game of golf would be better with Jordan Spieth back to something like his best, because he was such a compelling player. Remember his Grand Slam charge in 2015, then the disaster he had at the Masters the year after that on the 12th, and then the year after that when he snatched the claret jug from Matt Kuchar at Royal Birkdale. For 2 or 3 years there, Spieth was just one of the most compelling players that we've seen for a long time, and I think the game would be better having him as one of the best players. So hopefully we get a sign of that as being a possibility this week, but I don't see him contending or winning. But hopefully we'll see some optimism for Jordan going into next year.
Okay, I'll comment about that later. Fred, 3 players that are really to close here the top players outside the top 10, but they are as enigmatic on their chances as they are on their game. Talk about Daniel Berger, Harris English, and Brendan Todd.
I'm going to give you a little preview. I've got Brendan Todd in my dark horse. He's not the longest guy by far, but his putting makes up for his lack of length off the tee. If he can get it out there far enough and get those irons into the places on the green where he needs to be, he could get that putter going. He could be a serious contender this week. That being said, I don't really expect it, but I'm just saying that's what it would take for him to do that. Harris English, he's a Georgia guy. He would like nothing better than to do well here. He's been playing much better this year. He's had a career since we came back off break. He has really played well. He's kind of fulfilling some of the promise that we thought we would see from him from early in his career. Daniel Berger, he is long enough, guys. And when he gets on a roll, he just goes for birdie on every hole. And with soft conditions, with busting it out there, he could be firing at pins. It could be his week as well. So I can't say anything bad about Daniel Berger, Harris English, and Brendan Todd. When he's got that putter rolling, he could play anywhere.
Kieran, how about those 3?
Well, I think Brendan Todd has the best chance, given he's actually the only one of those 3 in the field this week. Both Berger and Harris English are not in the Masters field this year because their success came after the field was set back in April.
Who missed that?
So
Oh,
Carlos.
My bad, then.
Oh,
My
my.
bad, my
Carlos.
bad, my bad.
So I think we
My
should
bad.
just save those comments that Fred said there and replay them in April when they
Yeah,
both
okay.
will be in the field.
Okay, I'll edit this. I'll edit this.
Yeah, and we can see where they stand then.
It was
Yeah.
late when I did this last night, so sorry about that.
Now, some people might say they should be in the field, but unfortunately they're not. But yeah, they both are fantastic players. But Brendan Todd, he's also a University of Georgia player in the past as well, as a proven winner, of course, in recent times. So he'll enjoy his week. He could play well here. I'll have to wait and see. But I think for the other two, let's wait until April. They could be among the favourites come the spring. So it just shows you unique times, guys. And this is another example of that. The guys that should be in the field aren't in the field, but they will be next year. So looking forward to that then.
Okay, I don't know if I should continue to moderate this after that.
Yeah, you can go. Yeah, you're done. That's it.
Let me ask you a question. Is the top 10 players in the world are going to be playing this week?
I think so.
Yes,
Yes.
every
Okay,
one of them. Yes.
every one of them. Okay, so let's go to them then now. I feel confident about this one. I won't mess it up. So let's go 2 by 2, starting with Patrick Cantley and Tyrell Hatton. Kieran, what do you think about those two?
I like them both very much. Cantley was right there last year when Tiger won. Has a fantastic all-round game. He's one of those players who you think he should win every week because he appears to have no weaknesses. A tremendously very smart guy as well, very intellectual, has a wonderful game. So I think Cantley is one of those players who could very well be in contention at the weekend. Tyrrell Hatton is a player who's growing in stature. He's now won in America. He's won over in Europe again. He's someone who's getting better and better. He has a fire to his game. Yes, he appears to be temperamental, but he's a wonderful attitude where, yes, he gets angry. He has the outburst. He might toss the club, but he moves on. He doesn't dwell on it. He releases it. And he's got a great all-round game, fantastic ball striker, and that bodes well here. So I think Hatton will play well. I don't think he's going to win, but I think he'll have perhaps his best finish here at Augusta so far. I think Hatton's someone who, look out for him in next April, look out for him the year after that. I think in the years to come, he's going to be a little bit like Tommy Fleetwood, where I think in the right conditions, Hatton could be a contender at the Masters. But Cantley, Carlos, he's a real standout for me. He'd be among my favourites to be right there on Sunday.
What do you think, Fred, about Cantley and Hatton?
Yeah, Cantley, no weakness in his game. He's been playing quite well. So he could do as well as anybody this week for sure. Tyrell Hatton, I echo Kieran's sentiments exactly. I just don't think it's his time right now. Very good player. He showed up well, and he's played pretty well actually this year, but and last year as well. But I just don't think it's quite his time yet.
All right, so Fred, let's talk about two players who are. How about Webb Simpson and Xander Schauffele?
Yeah, both very good players on very difficult golf courses. Webb Simpson has just had a phenomenal, I mean, he's had the best year of his career by far, except for when he won the US Open a few years back. But he's been very, very consistent over the last year. Xander Schauffele, big tournaments, he's your guy. I mean, seems like he's top 5 or top 10 every time there's a big tournament on a tough golf course. So can they win this week? Yes, either one could win this week. Will they? Probably not, but I'll bet they finish top 15 or top 25.
Kieran, how about Webb and Xander?
Yeah, I think Xander Schauffele is always a standout in majors. He has got this ability to bring out his best on really tough venues and under pressure as well. So I think he will play well this week. Now the question is, he hasn't been able to win one of them. He hasn't quite crossed that line. At times he's been unlucky. He's been very close, particularly when at the Open 2 years ago at Carnoustie, he was right there towards the end. So he's someone who's building it up in stature all the time. So I feel he's someone who will be in that top 5, top 10 going into Sunday. Now, does he have that extra spark under pressure to make those magic moments, have that chip in, have that long putt under pressure at the right time? Does he have those intangibles that we associate so much with the Masters, that shot-making moment, that winning moment? Does he have that in his locker quite yet? I'm not so sure, but I think he will certainly be in contention in one of the last 3 or 4 groups at worst going into Sunday. And Webb also maybe doesn't quite have the length for the what will be probably a sodden Augusta National, but a fantastic all-round game. He's a grinder, good short game, knows how to get the ball in the hole, and he's someone who, if he can take advantage of the par fives here, he's not going to maybe hit them all in two, obviously, but he can still make birdies. If he does that and reduces mistakes elsewhere, he can go round here under par each day and kind of be a sleeper on the leaderboard. But I don't think he'll win. But Xander, I think he will be in that sort of top 5, top 10, and he will be one of those names to look out for going into the weekend.
Hey, Fred, let's start talking about power. Rory McIlroy and Bryson DeChambeau.
Well, my question is, will the real Rory McIlroy please stand up, or will he show up? We've seen Rory be so inconsistent this year. Last year, 2018, 2019, he was like the most consistent guy in the world. How many tournaments he went? 6 or 7 tournaments in a row, never finished lower than T8, right? Seemed like top 10 every week. And this year, it's, yeah, he got married, he had the baby, and he's just got a lot of stuff going on. So maybe that's it. I don't know. He said, he likes having the fans there. He doesn't feel like he quite gets the energy when there's no fans. So I don't know, but Rory needs this to finish off his career Grand Slam. I'm picking him as one of my top 5 this week for sure. I think he has a big week. I like Rory a lot this week. And as far as who was the second one we were talking about?
Bryson DeChambeau.
Yeah, I talked so long about Rory, I forgot about Bryson. Yeah, we've kind of documented that. I expect. I know you guys don't think he'll win. I really don't think he's going to win either. I think he's going to make a lot of noise and all that kind of thing. I think he'll probably make the cut. I think he might be top 20 or something. But you not only have to hit long at Augusta, you got to make putts. You got to get it up and down. So, and you start putting too much pressure on yourself with even if you're hitting short irons in there, and all of a sudden your timing's off and you're missed at 25, 30 feet left or right or long. And that's not what you want at Augusta. You want to be within that 8 to 10 foot circle where you want it, so you get in the right part of the green that you want it. And the greens there can make you look pretty stupid. And I think that'll be the challenge for Bryson this week.
What do you think, Kieran?
I think with Rory, it's really interesting the dynamic of the postponement initially of the Masters. If we had the Masters in April as scheduled, Rory would have been the favourite this year in April. His form, as Fred touched on, for the past 18 months before then was best in the world. He was flying, he was playing well. He was going into this year's Masters, potentially to complete that career Grand Slam, and he was certainly the favourite to do so. But no one has probably been more negatively impacted by the pandemic than Rory. He's come back, he hasn't done it, he's shown little flashes here or there, but hasn't done it consistently. He hasn't been the player that he was pre-pandemic. So yeah, Rory's coming into this week well under the radar by his standards at Augusta. In April, he would have been the man. This week, he's an also ran in terms of where he is, kind of hype wise. But that might just suit him. I think Rory's a wild card here, where he's so capable, can do absolutely anything. He has played well consistently here. A lot of top 5s, a lot of top 10s. He does shoot some really good scores here. There is some scar tissue, of course, going back to 2011, obviously famously. But even when he lost out to Patrick Reed a couple of years ago in really meek fashion, that was a disappointing one for him there too. So obviously the pressures on Rory to complete the career Grand Slam. He doesn't have the atmosphere, doesn't have the fans this week, doesn't have that same focus and attention. So I don't know. He's a wild card. I could see it. Rory could miss the cut or he could win. I wouldn't be shocked either way. I find him a real wild card. And I think Bryson, as much as he's the favourite of the bookmakers this week, I think he's also a wild card. I think I've seen people say, oh, Bryson's either going to win this by 10 or miss the cut by 10. His approach will either work or fail miserably. I think the likelihood is it'll be something in between. I think he will play well here. I think he'll make some, I think he will shoot a good round or two. He'll make a lot of birdies. He'll make some noise. But again, does he have? Will he be able to avoid those mistakes, make those crucial up and downs, hold that putt under pressure? He's certainly capable of it. I would never rule him out. But I think there's almost been so much noise made about Bryson that, being the hipster that I do go against the grain. There's been so much noise about Bryson DeChambeau, it puts me off him this week. So I'm going to say he doesn't win the Masters this year. But I think he will play solidly. I think I could see him being potentially there after 2 rounds, maybe falling back a little bit, maybe finishing in sort of 10th place or something like that. But I just don't. I've just got a feeling in my gut that Bryson will not win this week. And Rory, anything could happen. He's a wild card. I'm going to sit in the fence on that one. Obviously, if he won the Masters, it'd be a fantastic story. And I hope if it happened, it'd be wonderful, and I would be delighted to see it. But yeah, Rory has to show us something this week he hasn't shown us this year. It could happen, but logically it isn't there. But you never know. Magic can happen at Augusta, and it'd be magical, certainly. If Rory was to get his hands on that green jacket, it would be just a fantastic moment for the game. It'd be a shame if he did it without the fans being there, but I think you'd take it regardless.
He definitely would. And I said a month ago, Bryson's not going to win. He's not going to be in top 5. So he's not going to. Fred, how about JT and Colin Morikawa?
Well, I love both of these guys. Matter of fact, all the next 4 that you're going to talk about, I think the winner, well, throw in Rory, I think the winner will probably come from one of these last 5 that we're talking about right now. Colin Morikawa, it's his first time here. Wouldn't surprise me if he won here. I think he's long enough. I think he's accurate enough with his irons, and I think he's a good enough putter. It showed you that, Harding Park is no slouch of a golf course, and he played out there pretty well. He played pretty well at Muirfield Village. So again, if you can win at Muirfield Village, I don't care if it's the week before the Memorial or whatever, that's still a hard golf course, and it was set up hard, and it was a soft golf course that week, and he won. So, I think he's got the right mindset. I think he's a really good guy for this golf course, especially if it's going to be wet. Justin Thomas, I wouldn't bet against him, never. He could be the winner this. He could win by 5 shots. Wouldn't surprise me at all. If he gets off to a good start on Thursday and Friday, I think he's got a good shot of winning as anybody.
What do you think about JT and Colin Morikawa, Kieran?
I think JT is one of the standouts. I think Justin Thomas, we talk about ball striking and iron play. He led the tour in 2020 season for strokes gained approach, and typically the Masters champion is one of those players for that week. Is the best iron player of the week. The last 4 or 5 years, that rings true for every time. So if he can bring that iron play here, then he is going to give himself so many chances to make birdies and to score well. Now, at times he can be a little bit erratic with the putter, where he's a bit streaky, where he misses quite a few, but he also makes a lot. If he has one of those good weeks in the greens, then he will definitely be in contention, because he has a fantastic attitude. He's a wonderful competitor. He's one of those guys who has a great ability to do well on a Sunday. He doesn't shy away from the pressure. He embraces it. And it's about time he won a second major. It's been 3 years since he won that PGA. And he knocks on the door a lot of times. Hasn't got the most spectacular record at Augusta, but it's very solid. A lot of top 15s, just playing well, not getting into contention, but just solid rounds, learning, gaining experience. Now it's time to win, and it might very well be his week. As for Morikawa, obviously, I think he's a standard. He's a star. He's one of the players of his generation in the making. Already a major winner. Can't rule out a guy that's done that so early in his career. And ball striking wise, he's just incredible. Attitude wise, old head and young shoulders. That cliche rings very true with Morikawa. Now again, the question mark would be, obviously, without knowledge of the golf course, doesn't have that experience, rookies don't win here. But again, as I said earlier, if a rookie's going to win at Augusta, when you see Morikawa and Matt Wolff as rookies, then this is probably going to be as good a chance as you're ever going to have for that. So Morikawa might very well play well this week, but of those two, I think Justin Thomas is a real contender this week.
All right, now let's go to the top two in the world, Fred. Dustin Johnson and John Ram.
I'm going to make this real simple. Dustin Johnson is just playing really, really well. Yeah, he had to lay out for a week or two because of coronavirus. That just means his legs are rested now. He appears ready. He played really well last week. I think he's ready to go, and I think he wants a Masters win. John Rahm, he's already won big tournaments this year. We know he's playing well, no question about it. I think the winner is going to come from Dustin Johnson, John Ram, Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, or Rory McIlroy. I think one of those guys is going to be the winner, and we could probably see two or three of them towards the last couple of groups on Sunday, guys.
How about you, Kieran?
Yeah, I think Dustin Johnson. He's someone who, he has a Hall of Fame career in so many aspects, but obviously getting a second major would be the absolute stamp on that. And again, he's someone who, on his day, he can do absolutely anything to any golf course. His all-round game is so good now. It's so advanced. There's a reason why he's world number one, and I think he will play well this week. And John Ram, we're talking about him, a guy who has all the shots, all the ability, has won on every kind of golf course. From the Winds of Ireland to Olympia Fields and all this stuff. He's done everything in different conditions, different weather conditions. He doesn't shy away from that. He has a fire to him that I think, he now controls that, and he uses it to his advantage. So I think he's someone who could really contend this week. And if you like your history, it's 40 years ago since Seve Ballesteros won his first Masters title back in 1980. So maybe if the signs are there, I saw that John Ram was playing today with Jose Maria Olazabal getting some tips, and anyone who's been on social media will have seen the astonishing hole-in-one that John Ram made today, skipping the ball over the water on the 16th into the hole. One of the most astonishing golf shots I think any of us will ever see. It was practice, but maybe the omens are there. A lot of good stuff's happening for John Ram right now, and I don't know. I think his broad shoulders would look quite good in a green jacket. So now I think he'll be there on Sunday.
Well, when we talk, I'm gonna give it right now before we go later into the top five. He's my pick to win. So anyway,
spoiler alert!
Before anybody else picks him to win, I'm picking it right now. I don't know if you guys were gonna.
It doesn't work that way, Carlos. It doesn't work that way.
I had to get it out there. I know I'm the last one, so I wanted to get out there and say John Ram is my
second fiddle on that, Kieran.
Yeah. So anyway, that wraps up our preview of the players. Now let's start with some questions about this. I'm gonna ask you guys. That it's one of those stone cold logs of the Masters. Rookies never win. The list is very short. It's Fuzzy Zeller, 1979. Well, unless you count Gene Sarazen, who won the original, everybody was a first timer, so everybody was a rookie. But anyway, it's Fuzzy Zeller. Colin Morikawa, we have talked about it, and Matthew Wolff are the top rookies that you can think of. I don't think we have seen rookies like Colin and Matthew in a long time coming to the Masters. So is it possible that Fuzzy Zeller will have some company, Fred, after this?
Very, very much so. I like both of those guys, Matt Wolff and Colin Morikawa. I mean, you know how much I like Morikawa. Especially if the golf course is soft. Matt Wolff's strength seems to be that long driver, and when he's busting that thing out there and then hitting those short irons in, there's just nothing not to like about this guy. So yeah, I think we could have a first-time winner this year with Hovland too. One of these young guys could break through.
What do you think, Kieran?
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, I think if there's ever going to be a first-time winner again, then I think this will be the year, and I think these two will be the candidates, Morikawa and Wolff. As we've discussed, two fantastic players who have just shot onto the stage in the past year. Morikawa, already a major champion. Matt Wolff wasn't far away at the US Open either. So, yeah, I think these two are real standout players, and they might be able to break that long-standing curse of the rookies at Augusta. So, yeah, I think It wouldn't surprise me if Old Fuzzy had a companion next to him next year at the Champions Dinner. But I still think there are other players who will win ahead of these two guys. But if either of them were there on Sunday, I would not be surprised to see them make history. I think we saw Jordan Spieth in his debut here back in 2014. He came so close, losing out to Bubba. I think these two guys will be in contention on Sunday, and who knows, they might be able to break that curse.
Very possible. Very possible. Hey, let's now. Everybody's been waiting for this, so get your notepads out. Here are our picks, and we're gonna start with the top amateur. There's only six. Very, very good amateurs coming in. Only six, but Kieran, I'm gonna give you the first pick on this one. Who's gonna be the lowest amateur?
I'm going to pick a little bit of an outsider. I'm going to go for Lucas Michel, the mid-amateur champion. More from a sentimental point of view. Yeah, he's 26 years of age, from Australia, but he's a real golf course architecture geek. He loves it. He's down from Australia in the Sandbelt. He caddied at Royal Melbourne, a Alistair Mackenzie design, much like Augusta used to be, or the Augusta originally was. It's changed a lot since then, but still, the architecture remains very similar. He loves Kingston Heath, Metropolitan. He actually studied for a brief time at the University of St Andrews as well. He's an engineering graduate, so he's someone who I think will be inspired by the surrounds of Augusta National. He's played the golf course actually last year in preparation for the Spring Masters. Obviously, had to wait a year now to come back and actually play it properly in the tournament. I think he's someone who might just surprise the younger amateurs in the field. So I'm looking out for Lucas Michel to maybe cause an upset and as the mid-amateur champion and take the low amateur honours. But I think, as I said earlier, I think the lack of 10-shot rule this year, it might reduce the number of amateurs who do actually make the cut. So if one of them can get through to the last two rounds, that might very well be the guy that takes the medal. So I think, Lucas Michel, he's my sentimental pick to be the low amateur this year.
You know, I thought you were gonna say James Sugru, but anyway.
I thought about him. No, I went for Lucas Michel. That's my logic is there.
Okay. I wasn't too far then. You thought about him. It's only six. You would have thought about 1 and 6. So anyway.
No. I thought about those two, discounted the rest entirely. Just those two.
All right. Fred, who's the lowest amateur?
It's got to be John Augustine or Andy Ogletree. I can't really distinguish one over the other that much. If I had to
pick one.
I guess I would say Augustine. Maybe is just a hair better than Ogletree, maybe. But I know Ogletree beat him at the amateur, but I think overall Augustine's just a hair better. Ogletree was just better that day. So if I have to pick one, John Augustine.
All right. So my pick is Yusing Lin. I think, he's been here before, 2018, 79 and 80, when Patrick Wynn won. And he won the Asia Pacific for the second time last year. And you know who he took down there in the playoff? Takumi Kanaya. Anybody that beats that guy has to be the lowest amateur here. So I'm going to go with Yusing Lin as the lowest amateur. So 3 different picks. I don't know, guys, who you're going to pick for your fantasy teams, but those are the 3 picks that we have. Now, Fred, give us your top 5 dark horses to win.
Got to go with my Ohio guy, Jason Kokrak. He won at Shadow Creek. He's playing very well, best of his career right now. I like Jason Kokrak a lot. Hideki, been playing better of late, is to me the dark horse. No one's talking about him. He's been steadily improving. He's won at Firestone. He's won at Murrayfield Village. He can win at Augusta. Can Ricky be considered a dark horse? Nobody's talking about Ricky Fowler. He could win here. What about Brendan Todd? We talked about that earlier. Not as long as maybe somebody else, but a tremendous putter. And then nobody we've mentioned at all, the rookie of the year, Scotty Scheffler. First time at Augusta, had a very good summer. There was that 4th place finish at the U.S. Open too. So why not? I'll throw in Scotty Scheffler as my 5th dark horse.
What are your picks for dark horses, Kieran?
Well, I've got a variety of names here, a very international-based selection. So I'm going to start with, however, someone we mentioned earlier, and that is Bubba Watson, 2-time winner of the Masters, feeling good about himself now, in some good form recently. he could certainly be a contender once again at Augusta. I've also got on my list someone else we mentioned earlier, Louis Oosthuizen. He was third at the US Open. He's come so close so often. And this is what I mentioned earlier. So I saw his tweet earlier today from Kyle Porter of CBS. He tweeted, if you look back at Louis' career, he's literally 7 strokes away from having 5 majors, a career Grand Slam, and 2 Open titles at St Andrews.
Wow.
He's had some heartache in the majors. He's knocked on those doors so many times, and he hasn't always done much wrong to lose out. So you can never rule him out in a major. I've also got Paul Casey as an outsider, second at the PGA. It's a really good record at Augusta, 5 top tens here. Again, playing without pressure, has all the tools. You never know. This could be the surprise victory. I think he'll take a lot from his experience at Harding Park, where he was magnificent and was so unfortunate not to win, just denied by the brilliance of Morikawa. I agree with Fred. I've also got Scotty Scheffler there as one of the rookies. We mentioned obviously Wolf and Morikawa as being rookies. Scotty Scheffler, he's a guy who's superb player, plays some great golf. Is incidentally the oldest looking 24-year-old I've ever seen, by the way. So he obviously has great experience of some things, not sure about golf, but he's aged somehow. So, a very good player. You never know. He could play well this week and maybe be the guy that actually breaks that rookie curse. And you know what? I'm going to go for the sentimental pick. I'm going to go for the one that shouldn't happen, almost definitely won't happen, but I'd love to see it happen. Lee Westwood. Lee Westwood, why not? First major win. He's played so well at Augusta through the years. A lot of top tens, top fives. He's been unlucky through the years. He's one of those players who's one of the best players never to win a major. Again, it's almost certainly not going to happen. But he's playing some solid golf, has a very relaxed perspective these days. And you never know. You never know. Anything can happen. I'm a believer. I'm a dreamer. So yeah, Lee Westwood, he's in my top 5. So my top 5, Carlos, are Bubba Watson, Louis Oosthuizen, Paul Casey, Scotty Scheffler, and Lee Westwood. They're my outsiders to contend at Augusta this week.
I was considering Lee Westwood very hard, but I left him out. I would say like he's like my 6th. But anyway, I gotta go with you guys. Bubba Watson to me is the top dark horse. And one thing that we have talked and documented about his mental issues that he's been working with. He's been playing really well, but he's a guy who admits he doesn't like crowds. You know what? Augusta National this time provides that perfect environment. No extraneous people inside the ropes, or many shots being played further away from galleries than usual. So I think Baba is going to be on his game this week, and he should be of my top dark horse to play there to win. Now, another player, I know he hasn't had very much success here, but it's someone that has been playing really, really well, and that's Tyrrell Hatton. I mean, he has. It's just this intangible about him that he can play. He knows he can play with the big guns on the PGA Tour. I know he has yet to put on a challenge here at Augusta, but his game has never been this good going into the Masters. Now, Louis Oosthuizen is another one. He's always a danger in the majors. He was third at the U.S. Open this year. Only lost out to in the 2012 Masters to that Baba Magic shot that he did. He's been a solid player all year. 4 top 10, 16 events. Watch out. Another player that has been overlooked, I would say, and it's Francesco Molinari. I think he hasn't been playing well, but I'm really hopeful that 15th place last week means that he's back. I mean, he's had a tour at times with injuries and a loss of form, but this year he has only played 6 times, missed 4 cuts. Finished 5th last year. You all would know what happened. His fate there down the back 9, but he was leading, and hey, he can just turn it back. And I gotta go with my 5th guy. I gotta go with him. I can't leave him out. I have always been seriously. I'm a big believer of horses for courses, but I'm even a bigger believer in thoroughbreds for a course called Augusta National, where certain players have been known to get their groove back as soon as they make that right turn into Magnolia Lane. Jordan Spieth. I'm gonna pick him. I just think this is the course and the time for him to get back on track, and that's my 5th pick on the dark horses. Now, guys, our top 5 players to win. Brett, go ahead. Who are your 5? top picks?
Already told you earlier, guys, Rory, Justin Thomas, Dustin Johnson, John Rahm, and I'm going to keep riding my young guy, Colin Morikawa. We're going to get that rookie winner at the Masters, guys.
What you think, Kieran? Who are your top five?
I think with the Masters, it's in many respects the most predictable of the majors. You have obviously a small field, so many great players in there, and yeah, you look at that top five, top 10 in the world. It's almost hard to make a case for guys not in that top 10. So I think that's probably where the winner's going to come from. And my top five this week, number one, my pick to win the Masters in 2020, the 84th Masters tournament. The guy who will have the green jacket placed on his shoulders on Sunday by Tiger Woods is none other than Justin Thomas. He will be the champion. I think his iron play will take him very far this week. I think he's just, again, has all the tools, has a mental strength to succeed here. And I think he's someone he's due a second major win to really underline his status as being one of the best players of his era. And I think the Masters will go a long way to establishing him as that. Elsewhere, I've got John Rahm again, has all the tools, all the shots, all the ability, short game, long game. He can do it all. He can hold putts from 80 feet apparently to win tournaments. So he can do everything. And let's say we have that great history of Spanish golfers at Augusta, Seve, Jose Maria Olafable, and Sergio. I think it's time for a fourth guy to join them next year in the spiritual home of the Masters champions in that locker room with green jackets. So yeah, I think John Rahm is someone who is going to be right in contention on Sunday. Someone who doesn't have the winning prowess necessarily, but he certainly has the game and he has the contention and he has the experience of being in the mix on a final day at Augusta, and that's Tony Finau. As I said earlier, I think he's just as likely to win the Masters as he is any other event. And maybe this unique Masters could be the one where he's going to cross that line and become not just a second PGA Tour winner, but a major champion. Wouldn't surprise me. Likewise, my fourth pick is Xander Schauffele, perennial contender in majors, plays tough golf courses so well. It's a wonderful all-round game, no apparent weaknesses. Will almost certainly be in the mix because he doesn't do things wrong, and he will certainly get around here and score solidly. Does he have that extra gear? It's what time he found it, and he might just find it here, and that might be enough for him to cross the line and secure that major that he's so tantalized us with in the past couple of years. He's knocked on that door several times. And my final pick, someone who was right there last year again, much like Finau. We mentioned him earlier, Patrick Cantlay, wonderful all-round game, someone who he appears to be a star in the making. He's one of those players who you just think he should be winning all the time. He should be a major champion. And you know what? This might just be the week where he fulfills that potential and becomes a major winner. It would not surprise me. So my top five, Carlos, is Justin Thomas, John Rahm, Tony Finau, Xander Schauffele, and Patrick Cantlay. But I'm afraid, guys, Justin Thomas, he's the guy. He'll win. So there's no point in even watching the Masters this week because I'm telling you, Justin Thomas, he'll win.
All right, I hear you. I hear you. I'm just gonna give you that he's my second pick. But going from down from five, I gotta get Matthew Wolf there. That's my guy. I think if there's gonna be a first-time winner joining Frosty Cellar, it's gonna be Matthew Wolf. That's my fifth pick. I have on number four, Xander Schauffele. I think he's just overdue for breaking through on a big tournament like the Masters. He if there's a big time player for big time tournaments, Xander Schauffele is one of them. The number three, nobody mentioned him, and I know you guys are giving him some fuel because he's not going to win. I think Brooks Koepka has a lot of chance. Just like I'm picking Jordan Spieth on my dark horses, I have to pick Brooks Koepka here because he knows how to turn that switch. It's not only about the physical stamina and everything. It's up here, and he knows how to turn that switch to motivate himself and get and just make everybody look bad by not picking him. My number two, I just said it, Justin Thomas. I think, contrary to a lot of people, I think the Masters is won by second shots, and just there's few people better than Justin Thomas on the second shots. Bryson DeChambeau, a lot of people talking about him and having short irons there. he's never been a good short iron player. That's why I don't think he's going to win or be a factor to win here in the Masters. But my first pick, John Ram. I mean, scroll through the list of the top 7 players in the world. The only one, the player that stands out without a major title is John Ram. The level of talent that he has, and he's shown already, is bound to be validated with a major, and I think it happens this week. And like you said, Kieran, JT is a shoe in, and to me, it's Ram. Back to back top 10 finishes here, said the Master T49. Fantastic form heading into the week. I've never seen a better body language from him. When you saw that shot that he did today, the relaxed times that he's having, he just looks to be in total control. Okay, 4 top 10 results over his last 6 starts, including that win at the BMW and that T2 at the Sozo Championship. He's just playing great. I think it's just his time is overdue for him to win. John Ram will win it this week. So, any closing thoughts on the Masters, Kieran, before we close the show?
Well, I think Justin Thomas will win, but he'll beat John Ram in a playoff. There's a prediction for you. I think both of those two guys, they are my 2 standout picks. I'm very much with you on that. But it's fascinating, guys, because I've had a 2-hour discussion here on the Masters, and the main story this week has been Bryson DeChambeau. So much hype, so much discussion, so much about him. He dominates headlines, but yet none of us have picked him to actually win this week. So either we will look like absolute geniuses, or well, complete dunces. So
Yeah,
either
that we
so
really are.
as we really are. So yeah, we're just pretending to be intelligent here. We're really good actors, by the way. But yeah. So again, this year's Masters will be very unique. Once in a lifetime, we hope. Play this time of year in these circumstances. But talking to you guys about it, I'm up for it now, and I think it's going to be different but compelling. And I think we're going to see a really, really exciting leaderboard on Sunday, and potentially a real star-making champion. So I'm looking forward to it.
What do you think, Fred? What are your closing thoughts on the
Well,
Masters?
normally we're watching the Masters and looking forward to springtime renewal of golf and sunny weather here in the northern portion of the United States. This year, even with the fall colors and the nearness of winter's cold blast, this is a renewal of sorts with the resumption of a time-honored tradition unlike any other. So, yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait for Thursday. I'm going to be watching as much as I can all week long. And with all the coverage on ESPN and all the coverage on CBS and all the live streaming and all the stuff you got, there's no reason not to watch it someplace, guys. Let's enjoy it. Should be great.
Well, it has been dubbed a tradition unlike any other, and will indeed be like nothing the sports world has ever seen. It's the Masters in November, and November to remember. Could anything be more 2020 than what we're going to see in the Masters this year? So, uh, Back Niners, that will wrap up another week of the Back Nine Report. We hope you enjoyed this wall to wall massive preview of the Masters. I think we covered every single storyline out there possible. Thank you for joining us. It's always our pleasure to bring you the latest in the world of golf. Special thanks to you, Kieran, for always bringing the best of us and of you on every preview that we do. So thank you for being with us. A great show with you as usual. Don't forget to see us again next week on YouTube, or if you miss it, check the audio version on TuneIn. If you haven't done so, I don't know what you're waiting for. Follow the show on Twitter. Our ID is at Back9 Report with the number 9 in the middle. My name is Carlos Torres, along with Kieran Clark and Fred Altvater. We wish you to be happy, be blessed, and enjoy the great game of golf. Happy golfing, everybody.
Be sure and check out the special master section in the November Ohio Golf Journal, guys. We'll see you in the back nine.
What he said. Until next time.